Oh yeah! Welcome to Between Two Barrels.
Welcome to Between Two Barrels. Thank you, Mr. Kool-Aid Man. I'm not sure who that was, but whenever soul embarrassed themselves like that, I'm sorry. We're your home for booze, news, and reviews. I'm Pete Sliz. This is Nick Pascal, and today we're going to be telling you about the difference between a bourbon whiskey and a rye whiskey. Nick, what are you pouring?
Okay, so to start, we're going to go with our straight rye. Bullet rye, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with.
Of course.
Bullet rye composed of 95% rye, 5% corn. The main component and the big difference between rye and bourbon is we get the bourbon.
All right.
Is what they're composed of. Bourbon whiskey, 51% corn, United States cash crop corn, and rye whiskey must be composed of at least 51% rye. Bullet rye here, which is a straight rye, is in order to be a straight rye, you have to be 95% rye. So we have 95% rye whiskey here with a 5% corn, and over here with Makers, our bourbon, probably
0% rye.
0% rye, probably 60 to 70% corn, a little bit of wheat, a little bit of barley.
Yep.
So in terms of the difference between those two, it's just the way they're composed. And now for the flavor profile, Pete, why don't we start? I suggest we start with Maker's Mark.
Less spicy.
Less spicy. It's going to. This
So
is the bourbon
try.
whiskey, primarily corn, United States cash crop corn, a little bit sweeter notes as opposed to rye.
When we were down in Kentucky in the spring, Maker's Mark had one of the most beautiful campuses. And it's over 100 years old.
We were very fortunate enough to visit Maker's Mark, beautiful distillery. Everything they do is on site there. Just really, really wonderful visit. Really interesting to learn that they use one mash bill.
One mash bill for every single one of their products. What do you got? That goes down too easy.
Maker's Mark, a whiskey, a bourbon that I'm very familiar with. Definitely, it has a higher percentage of wheat, which gives it much softer, sweeter notes. I get a lot of caramel, vanilla in it, which is going to be quite different than what you find over here with the Bullet Rye. And you know, Pete really enjoys the spicier whiskeys and the rye whiskeys, and I kind of sometimes tend to lean towards the wheat, the little bit softer whiskeys. Pete, what do you got on the Bullet Rye here?
I haven't tasted it yet. We just tasted the Makers. You should probably let me taste it first, right?
I think you should taste it.
Let's taste it. Yeah, I should probably taste it. Wow. That's good. It's kind of like a, to me it tastes like it gives me some of that black pepper spice, but more so the cinnamon and baking spices.
I get a lot of more of an herbal essence.
And clove, right?
Clove, anise,
Yeah.
you said black pepper.
If you like a sweet whiskey, Maker's Mark is more your choice. If you like more of a savory whiskey, the Bullet Rye would be more the direction you're headed.
To bring it full circle, bourbon whiskey, you're going to tend to see more of those sweeter caramel, vanilla, maybe a hint of a brown sugar. And with the rye whiskeys, you're going to get more of those spicier notes. Cinnamon, anise, clove.
Black pepper a little
black
bit.
pepper, which really, to me, distinguishes the two big differences between your bourbon whiskey here, Maker's Mark. Great example of your classic bourbon. Easy sipping, on the ice, neat, mixer, whatever you want to do. And then your Bullet Rye, which is a great example of a straight rye. So you're going to have 95% rye in this mash here. Really going to emphasize on the spicier notes.
All right, Nick. I hate to do this to you, but what do you prefer? Do you prefer a rye? Or do you prefer a bourbon? I
tend to gravitate towards the bourbon whiskies in particular for me. I really like that sense of caramel, vanilla, brown sugar. Like I said before, it's got sweeter notes. It's definitely not. It's not a sugary sweetness by any means, but definitely sweeter on the palate, and just to me a little bit more approachable. I personally don't like to mix. If I'm drinking whiskey, bourbon, rye, scotch, whatever it is, I like 1 to 2 ice cubes to really help open up the aromas and the flavors of the whiskey. If I had to pick, I'm going Maker's Mark out of these two.
If I had to pick, it's easy Bullet Rye, but to me, that's because I like the more savory flavors when it comes to whiskey. And to me, that's what makes a more interesting whiskey and a difficult whiskey to distill.
I'm not going to discriminate between these. I like them both. Bullet Rye, as I'm sure you might have seen before.
Probably the most popular rye in the market.
One of the more popular ryes on the market. Pascal Liquors, Pascal Liquor Square. We carry the Bullet Rye in many different sizes. Right here is a 1.75, all the way down to the pint. Maker's Mark, pretty much every size that's available we have. Really, really wonderful bourbon. If you haven't tried bourbon before, I'd recommend Maker's Mark would be a great one to start with.
Great intro. And if you want to be one of those good old boys drinking whiskey or rye, come stop by Pascal's Liquor Square on the Erie Boulevard or Pascal's Liquors out on Route 57 in Liverpool. And we really appreciate you watching. Leave a comment, leave a review, leave a like, and we'll be sure to get back to you. Hope everyone has a good day.
All right, we got to start it over. Last but not